What book is Tintin in your opinion? The Silmarillion. It's like one man created a mythology on par with the most compelling ancient mythologies of our world that were created through untold generations of belief and storytelling, yet Tolkien equaled it all within one lifetime, building a myth of such thematic strength and exquisite beauty that it boggles my mind. He towers over the whole fantasy genre, utterly unsurpassed, and perhaps he will never be. These are not novels. I offer the concept art books for the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Unlike many concept art books nowadays, these books actually show a process, the evolution of characters, vehicles and environments. There are preliminary sketches, rough paintings, storyboards, and actual maquettes and models in these books. As an added plus, not only did they have hardcover versions but softcover as well. People are gonna shit on me, but Bill O'Reilly's killing Lincoln. Listen, I thought what everyone else was thinking, but I swear to God my heart was racing as he described Booth creeping into Lincoln's box. A well-written book with a historian helping him. There's a lot of reasons to not like O'Reilly, but this certainly isn't one of them. Haven't read the others. Good Omens, by Pratchett and Gaiman. And the seminal Consider Flameless by the amazing Ian Banks. Also a fantastic bit of storytelling is a coming-of-age novel, set in the rural South during the early 1960s, with a bit of violence and a bit of magic and a whole lot of murder mystery, called Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. The Blade itself, Joe Abercrombie. Quite literally changed how I look at characters in literature and helped me understand how to write nuanced characters that have internal contradictions that are still well-defined characters. Unbelievably well written, and far and above almost all genre fiction. I always really liked Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell. You can really visualize the shitty conditions he was living in, dragging himself around two massive cities without a penny, and the strange characters he meets. The audiobook version is really evocative too. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It's full of wisdom, and while it was intended for warfare, it's applicable on life and business in general, truly centuries before its time and still relevant today. An expansion to that would be The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Solid advices. Anything from the Grishaverse Leigh Bardugo, that's my take on adventure. But if I were to give an award to some mystery books, I'd say absolutely anything of Agatha Christie's. She was, she is, and she will be the smartest mystery author ever, in my opinion. Ragtime by E.L. Doctorow. The writing is incredibly crisp and the narrative just sweeps you along in this amazing pseudo-historical odyssey. It shines a light on a fascinating and often overlooked era of US history in the early 1900s. 6 of 1, First of 3, including Bingo and Loose Lips by Rita Mae Brown. Confederacy of Dunces. I, Claudius. Good Omens. Small Gods. Hobbit and LODR. Hyperion 4. Foundation series. 3-body Problems series, especially Dark Forest. Odd choice for most, I'm sure, but I was enraptured by the ideas brought up in My Side of the Mountain when I was young. It was exactly what every kid my age thought of doing, and it turned it into a whole new world. The Green Mile is probably one of my favorite book series. I remember growing up I refused to own it unless I had all 6 of the short novels. Speaking of, it's about that time of year I read them again. We Have Always Lived in a Castle by Shirley Jackson. Nothing else creates a level of deeply haunting atmosphere that I feel in that masterpiece, easily the best gothic novel ever written in my opinion. Hard to Be a God by the Strugatsky brothers. They might be more known for writing Roadside Picnic, but this one tops it for me. Interesting characters, and an exciting story filled with moral questions. Atonement, Ian McEwan. The postscript is beautiful beyond words. I was breathless reading each sentence therein. I want to forget about the whole book to experience the first time reading it again. Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Not only does it comically poke fun at all our daily oddities, but it made me heavily reminisce about growing up in a small village. To Kill a Mockingbird, amazing book. I recently read it, and it really hooked me. Before that, I had only watched the movie, but after the book, the depth of emotion just hit me. This was years ago and I think it was a teen book, I can't remember, but it was a Jacqueline Wilson book that was colorful and had animation all over it. Was cool. 112 by Jesper Kent. Not many people have heard of it. It's a vampire novel set in Russia during the Napoleonic War and the vampires are not your Twilight vampires. It's a short story, but it's my favorite. Harrison Bergeron by Vonnegut. PDF here. Gee, that one was a doozy. All Quiet on the Western Front. If you thought the movie was heartbreaking, you're in for a treat. Had to read it for school and it became an all-nighter for me. Thinking fast and slow. Want to know anything about behavioral economics? This book is it. Genuinely amazed at how much knowledge it imparts in a few pages. I'll give you this on Jandy Nelson. I've never had a book leave such a mark on my soul like this one did. 3 by Ted Dekker if you want a good thriller. The Alchemist. I stopped counting how many times I read the past 25 years, but every time I discover something new and understand it differently. Perfect. I read 1984 by Orwell at the moment and I think it has Tintin potential. But I'm also not big in the book game, so I might be a casual scrub in that regard. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. The narration is unreliable, almost everyone's an asshole, the pace is perfect and the end sends a chill down my spine. Slaughterhouse-Five or Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. No other author has the same ability to move me from laughter to tears in the space of a single chapter. Infinity welcomes Careful Drivers, and Better Than Life. They are part 1-2 of the same Red Dwarf story and blow the TV series out of the water emo. I love The Stand by Stephen King. Probably my favorite book. I've read it and listened to the audiobook a million times and it's like going home. Elena Ferrante's Neapolitan Quartet. A Town Like Allison on the Beach by Neville Shute. East of Eden, Steinbeck. Count of Monte Cristo, Dumas. Not a fiction book, but The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee. Required reading by everyone with a passing interest in cancer. Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. Seriously long, but it is my Bible and I read it every few years and always get something new out of it. Bible. Lot to learn. Very comforting. And it gives great wisdom. And the best of all, you get to know and get closer to God. From the Earth to the Moon, by Jules Verne. It's a 1865 book about space travel, and it's amazing how many things it does right. Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa. The novelized story of a real man turned legend, Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman that ever lived. The Master and Marguerite, Bulgakov. Slaughterhouse-Five, Vonnegut. Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky. Notre Dame de Paris, Hugo. I'm mostly reading a contemporary. Jennifer Lynn Barnes' The Inheritance Game series is a fantastic mystery thriller. The War of the Worlds. Hopefully someone will make a film version that stays true to the book. Years ahead of its time. Logan's Run. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Restaurant at the End of the Universe. Life, the Universe and Everything. Lord of the Flies and the Perfume. Also the series The Ranger Apprentice by John Flanagan. Edit added a new book. The Cormoran Strike series, but the Ink Black Heart in particular. The Wrinkle in Time series, and Sherlock Holmes. Nimrod's Secret Identity. It teaches you that our everyday lives are one big ritual. I highly suggest this book. Johnny Got His Gun. The only book I ever read the entirety of in one sitting. Could not stop turning the pages. The Hunger Games trilogy. I never had such an experience like I had when I was reading them for the first time. Accession Ian Banks. Not for everyone, but it is the only book that I finished and then immediately reread. Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe. Love the characters, it's hard to keep track of who you're cheering for. The Lord of the Rings is just brilliant. I'd especially recommend the audiobooks narrated by Andy Serkis. Percy Jackson and the Olympians Lightning Thief. Also Percy Jackson and the Olympians The Last Olympian. Philosophical Investigation. By Wittgenstein. An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding. By David Hume. Salem's Lot. The only book that's ever creeped me out. That slow build to the final act is masterful. The Road Less Traveled by Scott Beck. Fantastic read on psychology, love, and personal evolution. The third skullduggery book The Faceless Ones. A Clash of Kings, the second Game of Thrones book. The Pearl by John Steinbeck. It is considered a novella, so may not a full book, but great read. I have never experienced a Tintin book before in my life. Reading is almost like a trauma to me. High Life by Matthew Stogo. Excellent Hollywood set neo-noir that remains eerily prescient. Mating in Captivity Esther Perel. Great psychological exploration of human relationships. The Discomfort of Evening, or in Dutch, The Avondsdagdruk. By Marieke Lucas Reineveld. Marching Powder is an amazing book about the San Pedro jail in Bolivia. Unbelievable story. The Power of the Dog, Don Winslow. Followed by the 2 subsequent books in the trilogy. The Martian, lot of science in it, but it was a great read and the movie did it justice. Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. Hopefully they don't ruin the movie adaptation. Someone already said Blood Meridian and Musashi. So go with The Trial by Kafka. Project Hail Mary. Never laughed out loud at a book. And I read a lot of books. I Am Legend was a pretty epic book. Very different from the film and a lot better. IT by Stephen King? Yes, even that part. I thought it was beautifully written. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Must have read the bloody thing a dozen times. Invisible Monsters by Chuck Palahniuk. Where the Shadows Lie by Michael Redpath. Dead Off Skates by Steven Erikson. Book 2 of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. World War Z Max Brooks. Love how it's more about the living than the dead. Images that you should not masturbate to delivers exactly what it promises. Catch-22 Joseph Heller. It's unfilmable, but they sure do keep trying. Mother Night by Kurt Vonnegut. Extremely effective on an emotional level. The Way of Kings, from the Stormlight Archives series by Brandon Sanderson. All Quiet on the Western Front. Wuthering Heights. A Tale of Two Cities. I'd say War and Peace. Also I love 1001 Nights so much. The Da Vinci Code Angels and Demons. I just finished Origin. It was okay. Ocean at the End of the Lane. There's just something about that book. Ready Player One, especially with Will Wheaton narrating the audiobook. Dracula by Bram Stoker. I could feel the doom with every passing page. The Holy Bibles. Lol, just kidding. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Flowers for Algernon. It legit made me cry for how beautiful it is. This one, I Am Number 4, raised me to use profanity incorrectly, so def tinge hint. Act of Oblivion and Also an Officer in This by Robert Harris. Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut. It's just absolutely incredible. Blood Meridian and Trainspotting are both amazing and unblemished. The Giving Tree. Doesn't need to be a novel to be a perfect book.